Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mini Scroll, the daily internet culture podcast bringing you the biggest stories from social media, the creator economy, and the digital space every Monday through Thursday. I'm your host, Lauren Meisner, the founder of the youth digital media brand, Centennial World. Welcome back to Mini Scroll, everyone. I got my hair done this morning, which is why this episode is a little bit late, and also why my hair probably, hopefully, looks amazing. All right. I have two stories for you guys today, but first I wanted to say we are only 1,000 subscribers off now from hitting 5,000. So I said yesterday my goal for the end of the week is to hit 5,000 subscribers on the YouTube. I sound like a boomer, but you know what I mean, on the YouTube channel. And we're really close to that. So please hit that subscribe. If you guys like the podcast, the most helpful thing that you can actually do is share it. So like putting it on your stories or I don't know, sharing it on Reddit or something like that. It helps so much you would not believe. So if you guys like the pod, please consider sharing it. I know that's kind of like an archaic tactic. Like I know a lot of people used to share podcast episodes and podcasts just in general, like shows years ago. And that's how a lot of the bigger podcasts started to grow. But it really does make a huge difference. Obviously, word of mouth and sharing things privately as well. But it like sharing it publicly, it helps so much. So please do that if you guys like it. It will help me a lot. Okay, the first story that I have for you guys is I'm going to be breaking down the controversy between Melanie Martinez and Timothy Heller. And if you followed either of them back in the day, then this might sound like a throwback, but there have been recent developments this week because Timothy actually posted a very long TikTok explaining the whole situation and what her life has been like since she spoke out against Melanie in 2017. So this story is going to take us back to 2017, and then I will talk about the recent developments. Wow, I said that so Canadian. Talk about the recent developments. Okay. So, Melanie Martinez is a 29-year-old singer-songwriter. She rose to fame after appearing on The Voice, and she also became really popular on TikTok around 2021. I do not really follow Melanie, and I don't know her music. I didn't know this story before I decided to cover it, but I had heard her name before. So she's like relatively famous. So in 2017, singer Timothy Heller tweeted an allegation against a friend, writing, quote, "What if I have my own story of abuse, but I'm scared to ruin the person's life and I still love them in a fucked up way and the public really loves them and most probably won't believe me." So this tweet was unprovoked. It was just written, left out on Twitter, now X, and people were like, what? 1 month later, she then clarified that her tweet was about Melanie Martinez. She wrote, quote, "When I wrote this story about my assault, I initially wasn't going to make the abuser, but I think it's important for you all to know this is about Melanie Martinez." And then she posted, essentially like a story of what happened to her. So in this story, she explained that Melanie was her best friend, and over the course of their friendship, Melanie's, quote, "power and control over me grew and grew." She said during a sleepover that they were having one night, Melanie started asking her about her sexual preferences, even though Timothy actually had a boyfriend at the time. And Melanie repeatedly asked Timothy, allegedly, if she would sleep with her. Timothy said no. And then she says that she was molested by Melanie. So this accusation spawned the hashtag Melanie Martinez is over party on Twitter, and fans began getting rid of their merch and posting it online. You know, when somebody kind of goes through a controversy or a scandal and their fans will show themselves like throwing out their merch or burning their merch or whatever, stuff like that was happening. And then according to Sam Hargrave for The Direct, Melanie responded to Timothy's claims at the time. So Melanie apparently responded a couple days later in her own statement. So she said, "I'm horrified and saddened by the statements and story told tonight by Timothy Heller. What she and I shared was a close friendship for a period of time. We came into each other's lives as we were both starting our careers as artists, and we tried to help each other. We both had pain in dealing with our individual demons and the new paths we were forging, but I truly felt like we were trying to lift each other up." Okay, so even though Melanie said she never said no, like obviously admitting that something happened and, you know, kind of there's a red flag, big red flags there by saying in a statement she didn't say no. Big red flags. Despite this, however, Melanie's supporters decided that they were basically going to go on, you know, an internet tirade and try and invalidate or discredit Timothy's claims. So one of the things that they discovered that ended up like quote unquote discrediting this claim is that in an interview with the Daily Mail, Timothy gave a date as to when the alleged assault happened. And internet sleuths discovered, going back on Instagram photos and things like that, that it appeared that the two women were actually in completely different states at the time that she claims that this assault happened. So that then flipped the narrative from Melanie Martinez is over to basically Timothy is over. And when Melanie's fans discovered this and this started getting posted all over Instagram, Melanie responded. She actually made her own statement. She wrote, "I understand how hard it could be to see my side of the story, considering no one with a heart would want to invalidate anyone speaking up about this topic. I want to thank my fans who took the time to research the timeline, analyze past Instagram photos, and question the story being told, which reveal her false statements. I trusted so many people in my life who took advantage of that trust for their own personal gain." So Melanie making this statement, obviously, it's like giving her fans a gold star. It's like giving those crazy stans like her stamp of approval, you know? So this just turned the whole situation so far against Timothy, and her comments were flooded by hate. She was accused of using Melanie's name for clout and, fame chasing basically with this accusation. And she basically went dormant. Like Timothy basically went dormant online for years, like since 2017. And then this week, she reappeared. She made a lengthy TikTok video talking about what that experience was like. She basically said she was effectively run off the internet after sharing her experience with Melanie. She said speaking out against her abuser ruined her life. But hearing Melanie admit that something did happen between the two of them when she said, she never said no to me or whatever, that was somewhat validating because it was her admitting that like something happened. She said she was excessively, quote, gaslit into thinking I was a bad person by the internet. And then she did explain the date mix-up. She said that she was asked by Daily Mail to give a date on the alleged assault. So she looked at her camera roll to figure it out, and she kind of correlated the date to the photo. However, she didn't realize that the photo she was looking at was a screenshot. So the date was like a screenshot of a photo. So the date that was appearing was like the day that she screenshotted the photo, I believe. Either way, she's claiming that it was like a screenshot inside her camera roll and not the actual photo that she looked at when she was referencing the date. But regardless, she talks about how speaking out against Melanie put her friends and family in danger. They got doxxed, they got harassed, and it all led to her basically quitting music. She says she lost all of her sponsorship opportunities and she had to completely change careers. So she decided to go into sex work, and she said that was also not a great experience because she said people found her sex work content and they were posting it without her consent and mocking her and hacking her accounts. She said every single account that she had, like literally on the internet, was hacked except for her bank account. So I know that this whole back and forth is still very debated. I'm not here to debate like what happened. I think this is very much a lesson for us in toxic stan culture, toxic fandom, and how pretty often I would say the celebrities, whether they mean to or not, like stoke those flames. I mean, we talked about that a lot. I think it was at the beginning of last year when the Hailey Bieber, Selena Gomez, Kylie Jenner, like the eyebrow gate situation happened, and it felt like Selena was kind of like stoking those flames with her fans and like getting her fans to like indirectly go after Hailey and indirectly stand up for her by like her giving them a pat on the back and saying like, thank you so much, I love you guys, for what they were doing. So I think it's important for us to watch out for that. The way that Melanie Martinez like thanked her fans and was like, you guys did all this digging, like, you put your FBI hats on and you figured it out for me. That's really toxic. Like that's feeding that parasocial relationship with them. That's giving them a gold star. It's almost like giving them the go ahead to look into her further. Because she's like, thank you for looking into this for me. And then they all went and basically like doxed this woman off the internet for 7 years. So at the time of recording, Melanie has not responded to Timothy's video. And I believe Timothy has actually deleted her video. I couldn't find the original on TikTok, but it is like reposted here and there, but I couldn't find the original. All right, and the second story that I have for you guys today is that Nara Smith has now been accused of copying her Marc Jacobs ad. A couple of days after the internet praised Marc Jacobs and Nara Smith for their tote bag collaboration TikTok, the creator is coming under fire for allegedly copying the concept from a smaller creator and designer named Mary Corlin Downs. So in case you missed it, Nara Smith did a collaboration with Marc Jacobs where she basically made a Marc Jacobs tote bag, like a red tote bag from scratch. I actually talked about it, I think it was on yesterday's episode, because I was like, this is so cool. And then I saw all the stuff come out after I published that and I was like, okay, interesting. So it's just like a Nara Smith video. It's filmed exactly like a Nara Smith video. You know, she is in her kitchen and she's mixing baking ingredients to make something from scratch. And then she rolls out the dough and it's red because she put red food coloring in the dough and then molds it. I guess we're supposed to assume she molds it into like a tiny little red tote bag. And then she puts it in the oven and then she takes it out of the oven and it is a full-sized red Marc Jacobs tote. And then she puts it on. And everyone's like, oh my God, this is like so good. This is how you do UGC, like, you know. So now Mary, this creator, is saying that Nara and or Marc Jacobs copied her concept. Mary basically made a video back in December that is very similar. So she's like in her kitchen mixing ingredients, and the first thing she makes in this video is a striped tank top. And then the second thing is she puts a cherry, I believe it was a cherry, in the oven, and then she, you know, takes it out as if it's baked, and it turns into a red Marc Jacobs tote, like the tote that Nara Smith was using. So people started commenting on Nara's video anyways, being like, this was copied. And then, yeah, she made her own video. She played her old video in the background, and then she wrote over it saying, so since everyone in Marc Jacobs' comments are saying MJ and Nara are creative/marketing geniuses, does that mean I am the creative/marketing genius? And if so, you might be interested to know I run my own design and creative agency. Trying to work together, ? So people were not sure how they felt, I think, about this video, and she started responding to comments with different videos. And in one of her videos, she followed up by saying she feels like Nara took two of her video concepts and combined them to create the Marc Jacobs ad. Okay, so this whole situation is very divisive. I would say mostly because it's a paid campaign. So Nara obviously got paid by Marc Jacobs for this, and if the concept was stolen or like heavily inspired, I understand. Like, it does feel icky. Like, if this idea genuinely came out of nowhere in Mary's brain and then they saw it and hired Nara Smith to do it instead of Mary, I understand. Like, that feels icky because it's a paid campaign. And Nara Smith is so buzzy. She's so famous. I can only imagine how much she got paid for that. However, I think there's a few other things to consider here with this. So I would actually say it is more likely that Marc Jacobs found the video than Nara finding the video. I think that's for two reasons. One, we know that Marc Jacobs is on the pulse with niche creators, and Mary is a niche creator, you know? So I think it's more likely that Marc Jacobs knows about her or has kept tabs on her, possibly if she is creating interesting content like this as a designer and they saw this video. Number two, the reason why I think that is because it is common in influencing and media, even when you're creating videos like this, to get sent links as examples of content to like inspire you for the campaign that you will be working on with the brand. So I wouldn't be surprised if Marc Jacobs sent some examples like this to Nara. I think the other thing to consider here is that it may have been an original idea for Mary, but it's not an original concept. Someone actually tagged a very small jewelry brand in one of her comments, like in one of her comment sections on one of her videos. And then I went to that jewelry brand and they had a video from 2020 where they basically like put a bunch of baking ingredients together in a bowl and put it in the oven, and then it turned into a diamond ring. So, you know, that's just one example from 2020, which was obviously years before Mary made her video. And then other people were comparing it to Beauty Bakery, which was a beauty brand. I don't think they exist anymore, but that was like, you know, they were Beauty Bakery. Like their whole thing was that it was based off of like kitschy, cute kitchen stuff. And a lot of their social concepts were based on like them cooking or baking the products. And so like this might have been an original idea from Mary's brain. She actually might have never seen this before, but it's not necessarily an original concept. And I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, but there was like no original ideas. And that's kind of what art is all about, right? I think we talked about it in relation to Olivia Rodrigo, because when she came out with not Guts, Sour, you know how she had to give all those writing credits to all these different artists. And then there was one like rock star. I forget who he was. He's like in his 70s or something. And people were like, Olivia has obviously sampled or taken like too much inspiration from this one rock song. And the artist, oh my God, I'm sorry. I wish I remembered who it was. But he was like the only one out of like everyone that was accusing her of taking different samples and things who was like, no, I'm not going to ask for writing credits. That's what music is all about, is like hearing something and being so inspired by it and taking it and mixing it and creating your own art from that. And I thought that was such an interesting take, because we are in the world. I mean, I think it's just like the digital age. Like you just have to be so conscious of your IP and so protective of it. I totally get it. But I do think sometimes we've like lost the plot with like what art is supposed to be. But I think regardless of the situation, and I feel for Mary, like I feel for small creators. I have a small media brand, and I see things all the time where I'm like, I feel like that person or that journalist has like taken our content or taken our ideas and spun it, and now they're getting way more clout for it, way more recognition. And I do think that's just kind of like the nature of the internet. However, it's also very much the nature of TikTok. And I think that this whole situation brings up an interesting discussion around that, because the function of TikTok, like the point of TikTok quite literally, is to take sounds and dances and trends and do them yourself and like jump in on it. It's all about like sharing creativity and putting your own spin on other people's ideas and music and sounds and trends. On one hand, it does make it so that there are a lot of issues with crediting creators. You know, that was a huge issue at the very beginning of the app when dancing was so popular, is like it was a lot of Black creators that were creating these dances. And then these white creators like Charlie and Addison and all those like early TikTokers were doing those dances without dance credit, and they were gaining so many followers. And then all of these creators who were actually creating the dances got basically no recognition. So it is like a very much like an ongoing problem, but I think there will always be that problem on TikTok, because that is literally the nature of the app. Like that is the point of the app, is to, I mean, if you think about the functions, even like the different features, I mean, that the app has launched, like Stitch and Duet, like it's all about taking other people's ideas and adding to them, or you putting your own spin on them. So that is kind of the nature of TikTok. I think with this particular situation, the point that makes it feel icky is that, I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know if Nara saw it. We'll never know if Marc Jacobs saw this. But I do think the point, or what makes this specific case different, is that Nara was obviously paid for this campaign. She is not just like jumping on a trend and creating something without credit. Like she also got compensated for that. So that's that on that, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Mini Scroll today. I hope you like this podcast episode. I hope you like this podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Please subscribe to YouTube. Please share the podcast. I love you guys, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.